In the studio today, I have Jennie Abarca. She's the owner of King Fio LLC. Episode 81, here we go. Okay, Jennie.
Yes.
Jennie. I apologize.
It's
I,
good.
I
It's fine.
emailed you Jennie with a Y,
It's okay.
and she didn't take it personal
I
because
didn't.
she's
It's all
here.
right.
She's
Yeah.
here. Didn't even bring it up, but I
Nope.
did. Anywho, can you tell us about your journey in the trucking game?
Sure. It's been a very long journey. I was very young when I started. I had a family friend who had a trucking business, and his father suddenly passed away. And he was really out of wit's end. What do? I don't know how to run a business. What am I supposed to do? And he asked me to start working for him. And that was off of Anaheim and Harbor. And many, many years ago, it was called Power Logistics. And that is where I started. And I started just kind of doing like office management things. And it evolved because the way I looked at how they were running their operations and what I thought was more efficient, I started putting in my 2 cents here and there. And they listened to me, and we got really busy.
Great.
Also, a lot of trucking companies are truckers, right? They start as truckers. So maybe the customer service piece or, knowing how to write an email correctly or putting out a rate sheet.
Yeah.
Those kind of things weren't their forte because their forte was being on the road and pulling containers. And so those were I was coming in with all of that background. So we grew the business pretty quickly. And my friend, his priorities were changing. He had gotten married, he had kids, and he was moving back to Argentina. And so he ended up selling Power Logistics to another company. And part of the deal was that I would stay and go and work for the new company. And at that new company is where I really learned a lot about trucking. And I worked several different places, and I happened to meet my husband, who is a truck driver, at one of the trucking companies I'd worked for. I really only worked for 3, so that isn't a lot, if you think about how many times you change a job in your life.
Yeah.
And we got together, and I ended up leaving trucking for a little bit and learning warehousing and distribution. And my husband bought his first truck with the help of my dad because nobody, even with good credit, nobody would lend to us. So we had to put something like $40,000 down on our first truck that cost like $80,000. And my dad actually helped us. And at that point, my husband was like, we need to open our own business. And I was like, I don't want to get sued. I want to go on vacation. I don't want to deal with accidents. I don't want to work 7 days a week. And he's like, we have to do it. We have to. Just because of all the years of myself being in the business and all the contacts I had and the reputation that, I had built, he was like, we have to do this. So it was 2012, 2013, we opened King Fio Trucking. And everyone's like, King Fio, what does that mean? That's such a weird name. It's actually named after my grandpa. His name is Fiodavante Giannino. We actually just lost him in January at 102. And
sorry to hear that.
thank you.
But he lived it up,
right,
102?
Yeah, absolutely. And just who he is, his life story, which is very long, so I won't go through that now. I think my husband really identified with him because my husband is an immigrant here from El Salvador and did not have it easy. Didn't have it easy in El Salvador and didn't have it easy here. And I think they really saw something of each other and became really good friends. And my husband was like, we're naming the business after him. Fiodavante was a king in Naples, Italy, and that's who he was named after. And that's why our business is called King Fio. So that's the short story.
That's a very interesting name.
Right. People are like, what is that name? I'm like, it's a king in Italy. He was very famous for loving the poor.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's where we came from. We started with 1 truck, him and I still worked a full-time job, and we put everything we had into the business. We worked 8 days a week, and we saved all of our money. And when we got married in 2017, we were buying our second and our third truck. So we just really put everything we had into King Fio and grew. And that's the short story.
I'm sure there's a lot of action in between.
Yes.
They got you
here. A lot
here.
of highs, a lot of lows. But yes.
Hopefully we're get into most of that.
Yes.
Meeting your husband at work and eventually starting your own trucking company together.
Yes.
That sounds like, quite the story.
Right.
Could you share some of the, maybe any specific challenges that you recall from that time period?
Yeah, I mean, it was hard because he was working a lot. I would worry about him. He would work nights and days, weekends. I would work, when people were out like traveling and like going backpacking in Europe, him and we were working on a Saturday and a Sunday. So we definitely, I'm really looking forward. I'm 43 years old, and I'm really looking forward to my 50s because I feel like that's going to be our time. Him and I, when we're going to be, our kids are going to be older, and we're going to be able to like travel and see the world. But for the most part, Herb and I are really good business partners. He has his fortes, and I have my fortes, and together it's a very good mix. He's also a very honest person and very soft, and I'm more strict and hard. So it's a good,
the yin to the yang.
It's a very good mesh because and he is Hispanic, so he's a driver, so he identifies really well with the drivers, and I work more with the customers and the operational side of things. He's also like an amazing mechanic, so he's basically our mechanic and tire man.
So there was no conflict then working with your spouse?
There were fights, there were times when he felt I wasn't doing enough. There were times when I was like, I worked a full-time job up until we started King Fio in 2013. I worked a full-time job up until 2019. So there were times where I was like, F this, I'm already working full-time, and then, then I'm also running this business, but we made it work.
When you first started the company, well, based on, you had been at other companies, right? So I guess I should say, what's like the biggest mistake you ever made in trucking that you're like, oh wow, now I learned something, and you kind of learned it the hard way, Sometimes one that I've heard is you learned what per diem was, or stuff like that. But anything that sticks out?
So anybody who works for me knows that one of the things that I talk about is I believe that returning the empty is more important than pulling the load. There would be days during the pandemic when like a line would open up, and I would say, we are not pulling any single container today, and we are going to return our empties, because that is, in my career, I have seen other trunking companies go out of business for per diem, and I like had to open up new companies because the per diem was too crazy, or they got shut out of multiple lines. So that, to me, returning empties is extremely important, and anybody who works in the King Fio office in dispatch knows I'm always bothering people about it. I probably I think it took me a long time to let go of some of the control and bring in other people. And my life suffered for that. My personal home life suffered for that. Also, during the pandemic, I had to get really mean and hard because it was such a difficult time. You just had to be a rock. And I wish that I had been a little bit softer, a little more understanding.
To who?
Really to customers,
okay.
To customers, to probably to Nestor, our dispatcher. I really had to like be rough with him, but I feel like I've made him into like a mean dispatching machine. I can be very like cold and like, this is how it is, and we need to get this done, and there's no gray in between. And
can't customers be like that as well sometimes?
Yeah, well, I think I was...
Is there a conflict there?
I think I was reacting to the situations I was in. So that another thing I'm very bad about doing, and now I really watch myself, is reading my entire email. When you get an email and you just like, you don't read the whole thing. I'm guilty of that. Made many, many mistakes of not actually reading everything and getting the full story. But I I know when I make a mistake and I try and improve from it. I mean, that's why you learn. That's how you learn.
You know, when you mentioned that, I never saw it like that until you mentioned it, until you mentioned it, that as you finish the round, then you get more.
Right.
I just had this visual of like the analogy, maybe the dishes are stacking up. Like everyone loves to eat. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're eating, but there's those dishes. You save them to the last day, and then that's a major setback. So that's good that you were.
There were many times, even before the pandemic, when we had special projects we were working on, and things started to get more difficult pre-pandemic, where I was like, we can't pull any more loads. Like, we're not doing anybody any service by not recycling our equipment, by not getting empties returned, by not freeing up yard space. So there have been hard days where it's like, this is a hard decision to make. I'm going to F over a bunch of customers, but I'm hoping if you come at them and tell them the truth, like, I have this one day to return 150 empties.
Yeah.
So I need to do this. I need to do this because your empties are in there, and I need to do this. And I come from I've seen dispatchers and even companies where I worked from where they lied. Like, the truck is on the way, the truck is stuck in the port. You know what I'm talking about, right? I have learned that just burns you in the end. So I try and tell the truth. I'm always like, just tell the truth, man. Just tell the truth. Because then you're not worrying about keeping up a lie. And honestly, it's just the better. I think people will appreciate it when you're like, yeah, I effed up, or this is what's going on.
Or when you assume that the customers don't know what's up.
Oh, customers know what's up. Yeah. They all got a hard lesson.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that it seemed, like drayage is a gamble, right?
Right.
Like, even returning empties, you're opting out of taking loads out. So now you're choosing demurrage instead of per diem, right? So it's like, what do you want? Pick your poison.
Right. And sometimes that's a hard decision to make, but if you're out of yard space, if you're out of equipment, what are you gonna do? You gotta return that empty and recycle the equipment and close the file so you can bill it, right? You're not making any money with a bunch of containers sitting in your yard.
Yeah.
So, and move on from it.
Yeah, it sounds like a reasonable, approach.
Yes.
And one that the customer is more likely to understand than just amassing all these empties and then failing them.
Yeah.
Like,
Empties are so important to me. That's why when Port Pro came to me about the auto book and they were like, you can auto book your appointment, I was like, what? Because at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 a.m. when PCT was releasing empties, guess who was up at 4 a.m. clicking? It was me. So now Port Pro does it for me.
Reminds me of that episode in The Simpsons. I'm that old. Where Homer, I think he gets a job at a nuclear power plant or something. And the point is that he got creative. He got tired of doing that, so he just got this little. It's like a bird, and it's going tuk, tuk, and then he screws up big time at the end. But yeah, a lot of people had that, like a whole shift just to hunt empties, right? I mean, appointments.
There's a full job on it. Yeah.
So you're using it then? How do you like that?
I like it. There's been a few hiccups that we're working around, but for the most part, I like it. I normally work Saturday and Sunday. I have a home office. I just work a little bit. And before I was booking appointments because if I wait until someone comes in at Monday, you're missing, you're missing all the good appointments. So I would work a little bit just to be able to grab good appointments. But now I go in Saturday and Sunday, honestly, for like 20 minutes. And I'm just making sure, like, yes, this looks good. Yes, this looks good. Yes, this looks good. No, I need to change that appointment because the customer likes me to deliver direct, so they would prefer me to pick it up in the morning. This looks great. Okay. Oh, this booked appointment on Sunday. We don't have anybody working today. Let me move it to Monday. It has really changed things for us. Port Pro in general has completely changed my operation.
Balancing work and family can be a major challenge for many entrepreneurs.
Yes.
How did you realize that you needed to prioritize the work-life balance, especially after the kids?
So I had like no life when my friends were out having Sunday fun day. I was at home billing and scanning, and because I did have a full-time job, I would dispatch the King Fio drivers like for the whole day because I had a job and I couldn't be called and and, you know, on the computer that much. So I would work a full day, Saturday and Sunday. And then when I got pregnant with my first child, I still dispatched all the drivers, and I would put her to bed, and I would send the dispatch out late, and I wouldn't get to bed till like maybe midnight or 1 a.m. And then I'd get up with my kid around 6:30. So definitely my health wasn't the greatest. I was very heavy. You know, maybe I wasn't so like in the moment as a mom. And then when I got pregnant with my son, I was like, this has to change. Everything has to change. And that's when our cousin came to work for us, Nestor. He's now my dispatcher. And I tried to, you know, in trucking, it's something that you teach somebody. It's not like a class you can go take online or like you can go do it at a community college. You have to learn all of this by just being immersed in it. So I tried to teach him everything I learned. And actually another trucking company, ADP Express, they're like my big brother trucker. He talked about Port Pro with me, and he's like, you really need to get on something different. I think he had seen me with like hundreds of bill of ladings in a meeting. We were actually in a meeting with Floor & Decor, and with like all these bill of ladings trying to like manage a meeting and dispatch trucks. And he's like, you gotta change. And that's when I contacted Daniel, and he actually came to my home on a Sunday because I have kids, and it was, you know,
he would too.
Yeah, my son was like 4 months old, and my daughter was like 2, and he did a demo, and I was like, we're doing this, and we did it. We made it happen. He kind of like moved in with us for like 2 weeks, and he really helped us. And I actually hired Jo Mejia. I hired her just to help me get Port Pro running because things were starting to get really crazy. We're in the middle of the pandemic, and I'm going to make this huge change. And she, you know, geofenced everything, put all the customers in, get all the terminals in, did all the meetings, all the trainings. And her and Daniel really got us on board and booking.
It's like a crazy time, and then you still made a change during.
Right. It was very stressful and uncomfortable, but we had to do it just to be a better business, to be a better mom, to be a better boss, to move the company forward. It was just time. So bringing those changes in are what helped me, you know, start to have a family life and start to do things for Jennie and the Abarca family.
What are some specific ways that implementing Port Pro into your business helped you?
The sharing of information, it definitely cut down on phone calls into my office. You know, all of my clients have a Port Pro login, not checking availability. The flow of business, like moving from container availability to dispatch to invoicing, it was just so, you don't lose an invoice, right? 'Cause it's not on paper. So all of that just really helped with time management. And
you have time to go on podcasts.
Yeah, get my hair done, exercise, go shopping. So you know, really, both my kids now are in preschool. I'm on the school board. I volunteer at their school whenever I can, so that I'm not working Saturday and Sunday. I mean, for the 15-20 minutes that I'm other than that, I'm not working a full day.
That's a big difference.
That is huge, huge. And being a parent has made me, you know, being a businesswoman has been very fulfilling for me, but being a parent has made me happy and a different person altogether. And so being able to trust a system to do this for me so that I can go do things that make me happy has been amazing. And also I think we've been able to grow, but not necessarily grow staff, which means I can give my employees, you know, a really good wage, and I can pay for their vacation, and I can, you know, give them a good bonus because I'm running pretty skinny.
What advice do you have for other entrepreneurs in the trucking industry who are struggling to find that work-life balance?
It's very hard, especially in the beginning. I don't know any successful person that did not put 200% into their business to become successful. So my words of advice are hang in there, be honest, be a good person, treat people with respect, treat your employees with respect. Love your employees and the people that work for you like they're your own brothers and sisters, because your business is your baby. And when you do that, you have a level of respect and you have a level of person working for you that helps you go to the next level. I can step away from King Fio for a few days and I don't need to worry about bad things happening. And
did you ever think that was possible? Like,
no, never, no. And that was very hard for me to give up. You know, I've worked for a lot of, I'm going to say a bad word. Can I say a bad word?
Yeah.
Okay, I've worked for a lot of dicks. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot of what I don't want to do. And so I never wanted to be that.
Must have a woman's restroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was telling Lewis that when I first started working in trucking, there was no girls' bathroom. So I either needed to pee where the drivers were peeing, or, which if you've ever been in a trucking bathroom, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah, or hold it until lunchtime and go to Carl's Jr. So I told them the first thing when I walked in here was, thank you for a girls' bathroom.
Hey. We'll keep them clean, too.
Yes.
So... That's funny. Here's one for you.
Okay.
I know you take a lot of pride in this one. As a female owner in a predominantly male-dominated industry, have you encountered any unique challenges or opportunities? How have you navigated the gender dynamics in this industry?
Well, it's been interesting. Like I said, I've definitely worked for some people that were definitely misogynist, and that's okay. I was brought. My grandpa, my mom, my father, they have always taught me to be strong, to not when someone tries to bring me down, to not listen to them, to know who I am, to know where I come from. The history of our family, how strong we are. And that has really helped me through some dark times. But yeah, I've had some pretty bad experiences. Stalking, someone with less experience making a lot more money than me, being talked down to. I went for a meeting, and one time the owner of the company said, "You're such a good girl. You're going to come work for me." And I owned my own business. I'm just like, God, man, typical. I own my own business. Why would I come work for you? Yeah. But I have the kind of personality and drive that when you tell me I'm not good enough, or when you tell me I'm not going to do something, I'm like, oh yeah, MFer, just you watch. You just effed with the wrong person. And it puts a fire in me that I can't wait to prove you wrong. It's like, I can't wait. And so there has been a lot of negative things, but there's also been some positive things. I've had, I've met wonderful women. There's so many women customs brokers, so many women freight forwarders. And I feel like them being able to work with another woman has been nice because, I did bring the customer service piece to it. A little bit of a softer hand. So there's been some great things that have happened too. I've made great friendships, and I've also had men that have been, really supportive and really there for me. Chris Lewis of CPL Express, he helped me in Harbor buy our first home, and I worked for him. And
of what express?
CPL Express.
Oh.
Fernando Moreno of the Singing Machine. He doesn't work there anymore. He runs APL Logistics. He was a mentor to me, and he was very hard on me, but he also taught me, about how you run a clean operation, how you run a clean warehouse. And I never had to ask him for a raise. He always gave me a raise. Up until him, every single time I wanted a raise, I had to ask for it. And he would say, hey, you did a great year. We're going to give you this percentage raise. So there's also been some really great men that have been wonderful figures for me. And, I'm okay with being a girl in the boys club. It's okay.
Yeah, a lot has changed.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, I still go to some events and I'm like, it's all dudes here. But it's okay.
Don't stop going.
Right. It used to intimidate me and now it doesn't. You
stand out, huh? Like, oh, she's making it happen.
Yeah, and I think the experience, you know, working. All the men. I do have women truck drivers. I love it when a woman wants to work for me. I love women drivers. So I have one woman driver right now. At one point we had more. But anytime a woman comes in and wants to work for us, I'm like, yes, because they are the best drivers. They are so good. And if you go into King Fio offices, how many men are in the office? One. So I do like to hire women.
You said they are so good. So what's the first thing you notice that in your opinion makes them better for you? Like,
I don't want to make anybody mad.
Make them mad.
But the complaining,
So the women complain less?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh.
I've noticed that there isn't as much complaining, but you know, drivers complain a lot about the poor, complain a lot about everything. But there's not a lot of complaining. They're always on time. Just their work is just really good. I really appreciate it. They take really good care of the trucks. So I've just, really liked.
If you had to hop in the truck, is that something you'd ever consider? Like, you never thought about getting your license?
I want to drive. But my husband's kind of been like, that's a hard no.
Yeah.
You know, when we first were together, I went with him everywhere in the truck, everywhere. And that's been kind of like a hard no for him. If there's a problem or like the 2 a.m. appointment that nobody wants to get, he'll go get it. Yeah.
Always.
So in the pandemic, it's so funny. On a Sunday, we were returning empties to Puree, and I'm like, babe, you have got to do it. You've got to do it. I'm like, nobody does it like you do it. You've got to do it. He returned 13 empties in one shift, and I was like, because nobody would work. They all needed time off.
Yeah.
Everybody was working 80, 90 hours a week, the drivers, and nobody wanted to work a Sunday. And I'm like, you've got to do it.
That's savage. 13 empties?
He did 13 empties.
Good.
Yeah, I remember Nestor and I were like, man, he's so good. Mm-hmm. So no, it's me getting in the truck has kind of been a hard no for him, and that's fine.
Yeah, like we said earlier, right? The yin and the yang. Like, you're good at this, he's good at that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and when on the weekends, I try and do things with my kids. They're in swim class now. We're about to start soccer. So those are the things that I need to be doing.
I love the transparency. Like, a lot of people would probably be shy about it or embarrassed for some reason. Like how you shared that someone helped the CPL guy. Mm-hmm. Sorry that I say CPL guy, but that stuck with me. The
CPL Express.
CPL Express helped to get the house. Like, and I'm noticing like this industry, like, if I could go back to when I had my own authority and I was like starting to kind of take it serious, because before I got stuck at owner op, right? Owner op money, and it was easy. It was always coming every Friday. Not as much of a headache other than the truck, right? Or the lines. But if I could do one thing differently is network a lot and make good relationships.
Right.
Like, because sometimes we get tunnel vision as owner ops, like just the next load. Like
making the money, covering
whole,
all the... Right.
Mine. Just go. And so my point is that I'm starting to see it more. Like, people network. Right. Networking is a thing. I was like, network. It's like, oh, we're just playing business. Oh, hey, what do you do? Like, I thought like no one really gave a shit. They just go there to like show off titles and rub shoulders and like, yeah, this is me. But people actually make friends at these events and these associations.
Yes.
And companies help each other out. I thought it was always like company versus company, but sometimes one will take your empty. Maybe you'll need a chassis from them. And
absolutely.
Can you talk about that?
Yes.
That part of the trucking where there's a collaborative thing going on?
I feel like for me, that's really started with Herbirth. Where I tend to be like more cold and closed off. Herbirth has changed that in me. And that's my husband, by the way. And he has always been collaborative. That's probably also part of his culture. You know, the Hispanic culture, very collaborative. Everybody works together. And we've had other trucking companies, Jaguar, let us use some of their chassis in the beginning. I had too much work in the beginning because a lot of forwarders started giving us work, and we only had one truck. And Jaguar pulled loads for me, and then they let me pay him in like 30 days because I had to give the client's terms. And as a trucker, you want to get paid immediately. We had a friend, Alvaro, who worked for us, and he let me pay him like every 2 weeks so that I could get money in from the clients. I had clients that Redfern of Vegas, who's still my customer. I would deliver a load and they would have a check ready for me because they knew I was getting started. ADP Express, we're newer friends. We started to get to know each other around 2019. Mm-hmm. They help me all the time. I help him all. He just had a Hasload he had a problem with. I came in and helped him with it. This business, you really have to get together and work together because it's really hard. So very difficult.
What would you say to people that have their guard up then, that might assume that they got to protect their customer, or they might steal my account? Like, is that a thing, or it's not as common as you would think? I don't
worry about that as much because I have very good relationships with my customers. And
another keyword, relationships.
Right. I try and go and see them if they're here. If they're not here, I try, not just doing things for them, but being a good vendor for them, a good partner. So if my customer wants to leave me, it's like, why? Like, that's dumb. Why would you want to leave Jenny?
And if it's overpriced, not overpriced, but if it's over a pricing issue,
I would hope they would come to me. I have multiple people that, especially right now, rates are terrible. A lot of clients have come to me and been like, can you do this? This is what the customer's asking for. Like, it's the point where like, we're going to lose the business. And I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. But, you really have to have friends and people that understand. This is such a difficult industry. It's extremely stressful. There's so many laws and rules, and then not to mention all the BS that goes on in the port. You really have to have your friends in this business because, when I try and talk about what I go through with somebody who is, a police officer or is any other job in trucking, they don't get it.
Yeah.
Only another person in this business, in whatever capacity that may be, understands, the stress that you have.
And you might think, even I don't get it.
I think you do.
Like
you were in the truck, you get it.
But there's some stuff that I might not get, like when the negotiating part with the customers and all that, and everyone has something to learn from someone else, right?
Right. And I feel like that's why Herb and I have been such a good union, is because we both have our strengths. I don't go down in the yard and tell him what to do with the trucks, and he doesn't go and tell us what to do, operationally and customer-wise. And there's also a lot of trust between him and I. Let me bring that. We just had a conversation this morning because King Fio is really pushing the zero emissions. Mm-hmm. Not just because of the laws, but because I feel like it's the responsible thing to do. Whatever your political alignments are, for me, it's not political. It's about loving my family and my planet and being worried about what their problems and what they're gonna have to deal with. Mm-hmm. And so, as a business owner, I want to be a responsible business owner, and I'm hoping this takes us to the next level. This takes me and my business to 50, 60 trucks. Mm-hmm. And Herbert this morning was like, why are you getting the electric trucks? Like, why are you doing this? We have our trucks parked. And I'm like, first off, we're turning in some of our trucks, so we're not really getting more trucks. And I'm like, you have to trust me on this, Herbert. You have to trust me. This is where we're going. This is the future. You have to trust me. And so that trust is part of it. When we started opening warehouses, he was like, why are we doing this? We already have enough on our plate. And I was like, you have to trust me.
Okay, so you earned this trust.
Right. And when he does things that, we've hired people where I'm like, he's like, trust me, you have to trust me on this. And it's worked out.
I saw his safety vest. It says a lot.
Yeah.
He's been active. Yeah. All right. So what are your fears, though? There's got to be some kind of fear, right, in that change? Or is he calm now, or was it a lot of conflict? Because
I'm terrified. It's terrifying. Everything that we know, every way that we've done business is going to change. When the particulate filters came out and the engines with Regent, that was still doing business as normal. It was just, there was something different you had to do on the truck. This is a completely different beast. Right now, King Fio is working with Edison. Hello, Romero. We are working on building chargers in one of our yards. We're going to build 10 chargers in one of our yards. Edison's doing all the infrastructure. We have a Carl Moyer infrastructure grant to bring in the actual chargers. You know, there's a lot of change. We're aligning with Forum. We're aligning with Zeem to be able to get the outside charging, because my charging is not going to be ready for probably another maybe year or 6 months. So it's very scary. I mean, my truck that can go, you know, several hundred miles in one diesel fill up, and there's diesel stations all over the country, is now going to be able to maybe have a 200-mile range, and I'm only going to have a smattering of chargers, or maybe just one charger that I rent at a charging depot. So how we work is going to completely change. And, you know, we were buying used trucks or a new truck for $80,000, $120,000. You know, now an EV is $500,000. So it's going to be different, but we're going to get through it. And you know, when you tell Walmart or you tell Amazon or you tell C.H. Robinson, like, you got to go electric, no problem. They drop millions of dollars in their business and then they go electric. But when you tell an owner operator or a medium-sized carrier like me, hey, you got to go electric, a lot of them just are like, what? And they're going to ignore it, or they're going to close down. So there has to be a space for the small person, because we pay better and we do things that bigger companies may not do. So I am fighting for that space right now. I'm going to be part of it.
I guess we got to give it time.
Well, we were talking about this earlier, you know, at one time you could drink and drive.
Yeah.
Right? You could drink and drive. And that, you know, there was enough accidents and enough people killed and enough injuries to where society was like, this isn't right. And we had to change. And not just that, you know, there was a time where you couldn't call me on a mobile phone. And technology changes and we change as a society. And this is just part of us changing. And, you know, we can't, if we fight it, we're going to become a dinosaur. We become obsolete.
How did you, like, get involved in that? Like, someone reached out to you, or you just saw that that's where it was headed, or?
I can't remember where it started, but really, I think Ron at Forum, somehow we met. I don't remember how and when, but he's really started talking to me about it, and I was terrified. I'm like, what? You know, I've just put all this money into my business. I've just grown us to almost 30 trucks, and now I'm going to have to change everything. And he was like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. Like, we're going to get through this. And he started introducing me to people, and he started telling me, like, oh, there's this grant and there's this grant. And so there's a lot of subsidies and government funding out there to get you going and started. And you just have to be willing to put in the time and the effort. And that's where I'm also able to really rely on my staff and the support pro to, like, run my business for me, so that I can go to these meetings and go have a meeting with Edison, go have a meeting here, go have a meeting with Freightliner, and start working on the next phase of what trucking is going to become.
Yeah, regardless of how I feel about if I'd rather drive, you know, a Kenworth or an electric truck based on what I'm used to, at the end of the day, there's changes, and it's only fair that they help the little guy be a part of the changes. Then if they want it so bad, then facilitate the process, because a lot of owner ops are going to go out of business, I think, the little guys. And then the guys that have the bigger fleets that made the move will pick up all that slack.
Business. So there's special funding out there just for small fleets. And you can get, if not all of it, but a large portion of the truck paid for. So, you know, Google it, go to the meetings. The port has lots of zero emission meetings. Go to the Harbor Trucking Association meetings if you can. Reach out to Forum, reach out to Zeem. They can put you in. They have teams that just, this is all they do. And, you know, we're going to make it through. We
got to be more proactive instead of, like, everything that's happened. We're always going last,
Right.
like protesting or
Right.
you get me, like
I
making
do.
noise after instead of. I guess the looking into it part is boring sometimes, you know, and then
right.
when shit hits the fan, it's like, oh fuck.
Right. And it's reactionary and not, being ahead of the game. I think change is scary. People do things a certain way and they know what they know and they get comfortable. And when everything changes, it's frightening. And I look at it as a very personal thing. The planet, the climate, it's warming.
Yeah.
And as a trucker, I'm part of the problem. So this is just my personal feeling. Whether you feel this way or not, it's okay. I want to do something to fix this because I want my children to have a beautiful life. And so it's a very personal thing for me. Mm-hmm. It's not just like people are making me change and I can't afford this. It's very personal for me because I want my family and my children to have a life. And I've noticed in business, like you got to change. You got to change with technology. You got to change with things. Because if you don't, if you stay doing things the old way and everybody else is changing, people aren't going to want to work with you. Mm-hmm. Don't be scared. There's a lot of options for you. Diesels are not kicked out of the port. We still have the need for diesels. If you're doing loads to Arizona, if you're doing loads to Vegas, there is still the need. If you're doing even loads to Palm Desert, there's still the need for diesels. But locally, we need to change.
Okay, so get their foot in the door with at least something to get a feel for it.
Right. There's a lot of help out there right now, and I would take advantage of it now because, the clean truck fee that the port is collecting, that is to fund truckers to get new trucks. When you have your zero emissions truck, you're going to collect that fee and keep it to help offset some of the charges for this very expensive truck.
Yeah. I just get caught in the middle, because let's say I see where it's going, that these guys will be put out of business if they don't make the change.
Right.
So if I go with that impression and I start like pushing the information of how to get an electric truck, now I'm an electric truck supporter. But if I don't say nothing and then they go out of business, then I'm bad because I didn't inform them. So it's like, what the fuck do I do?
It's a rock and a hard place. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, you have to do what you feel is right. I feel like giving people information is never a bad thing. And if a person is so closed off and not open to information and to changing, maybe they shouldn't be in business. I mean, maybe it's time for them to move on. Maybe it's time for them to retire. Because we're always changing as a society. It's not just in trucking. We're always changing.
It's one of those things, right? Like, not just this, but things change, and sometimes they do whether you like it or not.
Right.
And it's unfortunate, but when you wait to the last minute.
Right. Well, and if you think about it, like technology and medicine, I mean, there's people born today that are going to live to 130 and 140 years old because of technology and changes. And if they weren't willing to like go to the doctor and maybe get, a valve placed in their heart, then they're not going to live anymore. So it's just, we have to be okay with it and understand this is just a natural part of life, that we're going to change. And as we become more advanced, we can need to embrace it.
Yeah, well, I hope it works out for everyone.
Me too.
And whatever choices people make, I respect that. And I'm here just observing and learning from others and sharing whatever I can. So I hope it works out for you.
Me
you
too.
know.
We're taking
and it sounds like you got a lot of steps.
Yes.
Checked off.
Right.
We're
just in the beginning.
And you've done your homework and making moves.
And luckily, there's been a lot of people that I've aligned with that have been like, you're going to be okay. You're going to get through it. Because I was really stressed out. I mean, like sweaty, not sleeping. Like, this is terrifying because the first mandates start at the end of this year, December 31st, 2023. After that date, you cannot go buy a diesel and go put it in the port. Any new vehicles that you're going to like add into the PDTR and get your RFID tag for, it has to be zero emissions. And that to me is terrifying because I want to grow. This isn't the end of my story.
Yeah.
So I had to really like listen and have an open mind and get on board.
Have you thought about gone as far as thinking about how it'll affect rates? You notice how like when the diesel drops, like at least with the owner ops, it was like, oh, well, diesel's cheap now, so the loads are a little less.
Right.
Like they adjust it proportional to your cost.
Right. This is like a big question right now. I don't really know.
See, like if I have a full tank, I know what to expect, how much to make that week, or what it could get me.
Right.
But how do you know how to gauge how to charge? Not charge the truck, but charge the customer, you know?
So I'm going to probably take possession of my first 3 electric vehicles sometime in October or November. And when we start actually like rolling them and doing a cost analysis, like this is what I'm paying the driver, this is what I'm paying for everything, and this is what I'm making, I would love to come back and tell you, like,
you'll share the formula.
Yeah, like this is what we've on our side seen. There's also been other truckers that I've wanted to go and visit that are already operating in this space, and I want to go talk to them. I just haven't been able to get out there and do it yet.
Yeah, I know Talon is one of them.
Talon. I think Height. I want to go see Height and ask him, like, how are you billing your clients? So
you think the new guys that just learned and went through, like, well, I mean, because it's fairly new, right? So a lot of people are going through hoops just to get to those jams, right? What makes them what if maybe they're not so willing to give up that information? Like if they had to earn it, you know?
Yeah,
like
from what I've met and from what this goes back to like collaborating and being a part of like and having each other's backs. From what I've experienced, it hasn't been the case where they don't want to share information.
But in this point, this could play a role in market share and like.
Right. I think that in the coming years, there's going to be a lot less carriers out there, and there's going to be enough business for us to go around. I am not really factoring that into my decisions right now. Yeah.
So that would be great.
Yeah.
Because someone has already asked me that it'd be great to have someone on that can share how they're navigating through expenses and how do they know if they're even profitable or all
I will be more than happy to come back beginning of next year and tell you what we've seen.
Cool.
Absolutely.
That'd be very interesting. So let's move on to another topic. I think we gave electric like a good 45 minutes.
Perfect.
No. Did you want to shout out your friends at Forum or any of your...
Ron at Forum. Definitely want to shout out the King Fio staff, Nestor, Erica, Rochelle, Joanna, Juanita, Mariah, Carlos, my husband, the kids. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. All the drivers. I know it's rough right now. You know, we're not working every day. There's very low volumes. And thank you for hanging in there with us.
Not bad for your first podcast.
Yeah.
You sound very, it's not your first time speaking, like, you do public speaking every now and then, right?
Yes, I do. I didn't, but I'm trying to do it more.
Do you remember your first?
Probably the supply chain meetup.
It was?
Yeah.
Oh, you did great.
Yeah. I was so stuck in the office and behind a computer for so many years. Like I didn't get to go out into the world and... So, and then, I go and I try and see clients as much as I can. I like to visit clients. I like them to know who I am and see me.
Does that count like public speaking?
Probably. I go to court every year, every once in a while, the people that don't pay me or, someone, that's always fun and exciting.
We could talk about that.
Yeah. Maybe the last person that they're expecting on a trucking case is for me to walk in. So that's very fun.
At what point do you decide you have to take the legal action, or is there a certain amount you just let it slide? Like, it's not worth it. Because there's effort that goes into it. I have a really great
lawyer, so if anyone needs a referral, hit me up. And it hasn't happened in a while, and it's happened very seldom with me. I have had very great customers, and really, it hasn't been bad. But there have been a few people where it's like, they just feel like not paying people is how they run their business, and we go to court. I am a fighter, like I've told you, and if I'm not getting paid for something that you have asked me to do, and there's no reason for you to not pay me, then I'm going to take you to court. So
the excuses shouldn't be a thing, right? It's based on the terms, right?
Right.
On which you did it.
For what we've seen, it's just like people, they just stop paying. I don't know why. We had one client just say, I don't want to pay anymore. Yeah. We've
What?
had, yeah. I've had an extremely long-term customer. I think run into financial problems, and they just like stopped paying me. Like someone I've worked with for decades, and unfortunately, like I have to take them to court because I can't. And just because you're having problems with your business doesn't mean that can trickle into mine. So it's a fine line. I find that once my lawyer gets involved and we start filing lawsuits, that they want to come to the table and negotiate.
Okay, so if see, in Spanish it's like si te dejas, so if you let people walk all over you,
Right.
well, they will.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There have been a few where I've just been like, it's $3,000. Like, I'm just going to let it go. And then I'm never going to do business with them again. And if somebody brings them up, I'm going to tell them they're a piece of shit every time I can. So, you know, there's been a few where I've just let it go. But for the most part, my clients have been wonderful.
It comes with the territory, right? I think everyone's going to go through something like that.
They do.
I think so.
You do. You weed out who the bad customers are. You weed them out pretty quickly.
Are those usually the ones that are just hopping around all the time? Or
I think during the pandemic, a lot of new clients, you got a lot of new business because everybody was so desperate. And I think that's where you start to see where people are not paying. It's just somebody that you didn't really have a long-term relationship with. And then some people are just really shady, you know?
how are you protecting your business from like scammers? Did you hear like what's going on? I hope I don't butcher it. There's like, they'll send you an email and then it redirects you to log in. And then once they have your information, then they use your company numbers and they
So we actually saw this happen in our warehouse, not with us, but we saw another carrier got basically like copied, and it was our customer's carrier, and they came in to pick up, and they came and picked up a load as like the carrier that was supposed to pick up and took a load. We actually ended up finding the load, but so for our warehouse, we're very strict about who you have to tell us who it is. They need to bring their driver's license in. We copy the driver's license of the driver. We take all the information down. We take videos of the trucks. So we are very particular about who's coming in to pick up from King Fio Dock. And then I have an insurance policy for cyber attacks. I just got this. It's just something new. So like if something was to happen, I do have an insurance policy in place. But we have a pretty tight space of who we work with. So outside of that, I really do my due diligence in trying to find out who it is. And then
so like those emails, like cold,
we just delete them.
Okay.
We delete them. We have spam. We delete all of that. I go through all of it and delete them.
Yeah, when I first got my authority, I got a lot of emails, and then you start getting added to these random groups. Like, do you have capacity for this? I'm like,
Right.
I don't even know you. What's going on
I
here?
get a lot of
Who
those
got
phone
me in here?
calls. Yeah, and I just tell them don't call me anymore. I unsubscribe to a lot of emails, so things like that. Yeah.
How does that insurance work? I didn't know there was a thing.
There's an insurance policy. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I can get you, if someone wants more information, I can get you to my insurance broker. But they actually suggested it this last renewal, and I was like, I had worked for a warehouse who was all of their WMS was attacked, and they lost all their information, and they had to like pay somebody in Bitcoin to try and get it back, and they paid it and they never got it back. So they had to hire a company to try and get all of their WMS back. And so they couldn't process orders. I think it was like 2 weeks they were down. And so I had a personal experience in it. So it's pretty terrifying.
Wow. So there you go, guys. That's something hopefully you learned today.
Yeah.
There's an insurance for cyber attacks.
Yes.
Can you share a memorable story or experience from your journey in this business that had a significant impact on your approach to leadership and entrepreneurship?
I have a lot of experiences. I think this is not a leadership experience, but one of the best experiences of my life is seeing a King Fio truck on the road when I was driving. There's nothing, and there's like no feeling like it to see your own truck on the road. And then I have like family and friends that will send me like a message or a video, and they see a truck of mine on the road. And that, I mean, I have goosebumps just talking about it. It is like, wow. Another really great experience is when my grandpa at my wedding, he said the speech and he got up in front of everybody and said, keep on trucking. Like after his speech, he was like, and just remember to keep on trucking. And everybody was screaming like, yeah. It was just like such a rad experience, you know, to feel those things. And then, you know, leadership, I've looked, there's been a lot of great people that I've been able to look up to in my life. My mom was a principal. She has been a great leader. My father, my grandpa, obviously, he ran a steel factory. I've always looked up to him. There's been lots of people in my career that I've learned from. I've learned what I don't want to do and what I do want to do. And I've always, you know, wanted to empower people and take care of them. And I don't want people to leave me. You know, I want them to feel good about, we're a small business. There's not really anywhere you can move up to, right? So I want them to be like, man, Jennie and Herb, they take care of me. There's nowhere else for me to go. I've done training. I did Dale Carnegie training. I feel like that was very mind-opening to me. I did a leadership training with Dale Carnegie. You know,
like a course or what?
Yeah, it's an actual like academy.
Sounds expensive.
It was, yeah. One of my old bosses sent me, and it was actually great. I got a lot out of it, and also just, you know, coming. I'm not overly religious, but I do believe in like the values of the Christian or Catholic faith. You know, be a good human, love your neighbor, give. Take care of people. Keep on trucking. Yeah. So I those are personal things that I want to be in my life. So I also try and extend that to my business. And what was the other question? Sorry.
No, I just wanted to. That usually works. Sometimes you just say
okay.
and people keep going. But
I think too,
it's just something I learned along the way.
You know, with women, there's like this. Keep doing that. There's this. You know, you have to be really hard and mean, you know, like the Devil Wears Prada, the movie and stuff. And I don't want to be that person. I want people to look up to me and admire me. I want to be somebody that my daughter looks up to. So, you know, I
think that's probably in the initial phase, like you're making a name for yourself and kind of building that reputation. Like, take me serious or else, right? Like, take me serious. And then when you prove yourself, it's like, I think you ease off and on the whole having to try to convince people because you know what you are. So
and
you don't have to.
You want to have a good reputation. I feel like Herb and I have a pretty good reputation, not only with our customers, but with our employees. And that's really important to me. You know, I don't want to be that boss where someone's like, God, they're so shady. You know, I don't want to operate. I've worked for people like that. I've actually worked for somebody who's in prison right now. So, yeah, in a trucker. Yeah. So, I definitely have had a lot of people that I don't want to be. And that's helped me get to where I want to be.
Well, it seems things are going good. And you carry yourself in a very, well, what's the right word I'm looking for? Like, I would say... You got it figured out? You got it going on? Well, how can I best describe it?
I don't know that I have it all figured out, but I'm definitely like trying to figure it out and trying to be confident and be a good leader.
You know, we're in this, especially with social media and all that, like people compare themselves a lot. Like, what would you say to someone that maybe another woman out there that sees you and they might feel like, oh, maybe I can't do that? Is there anything that you ever went through that might motivate her? Or, you know what I mean? Like,
I think when people tell me no, it's not like the end for me. You have to be resilient. You have to be willing to like take the hard route. And when I talked about this earlier, when people tell me no, it's like this fire that gets ignited in me. So I hope that if someone is going through a hard time, if someone's being told no for something they really want, don't listen. Don't listen to anybody. Nobody tells you no. And, you know, just keep pushing. And after so many failures, you have a success. So sometimes I know when like things aren't going good, I know, okay, that's good. Things aren't going good. So that means things are going to get better. you know, and you have to just really stay positive, and also know when to walk away. I know sometimes, like, it's really hard right now. Rates are really, really, really low, really rough right now. The trucking rates, you know, are in a huge depression. And as a trucker, the cost of doing business has not gone down. Look at where gasoline is at. Look at how much our yards cost. Look at what chassis cost. So sometimes I know, like, parking the truck is the most beneficial to the company. It's the hard decision to make, but sometimes you got to park the truck. And so it's the same thing in life. Sometimes you got to fight, and sometimes you got to walk away.
In life?
Yeah.
On a personal note, is there anything you struggled with personally that you overcame, or that something that was a challenge for you and now you're on the other side of that? Or
I definitely think in my marriage, I've had to, we've been really great business partners, and then maybe, like, not so much a married couple, like going and doing fun things married. I'm hoping that that is, like, the next part of our journey together, Herb and I, personally. I definitely have missed out on family things because I was working a lot, and that has now changed. My health was really bad up until about 3 years ago, and I've really changed that. I'm 5'1". I was over 200 pounds. So I've really tried to change that because I want to live a very long, healthy life and be there for my grandchildren.
On to the next question. If you were not doing trucking, what would you do?
We talked about this, and I probably would be a math teacher. My dad was a math professor, and when I was in college, I worked for a grant, and I got to teach math, and I loved it. Or I might be some kind of scientist. I love physics. I love space. Anyone who knows me knows if I'm watching TV, it's usually like a space documentary or something about aliens. I love studying science.
What happened last night? Did you hear about it?
No, what happened?
Some weird, like, meteor-looking...
Oh, yeah. Maybe, I think there was an eclipse. I don't know. Something interesting was going on. Hopefully, I'm hoping in my lifetime we go to Mars and
something. But while running King Fio, I bet you take the whole family.
Yeah. I hate flying, so probably not. But if my son's really into airplanes, so he might be a pilot. So we'll see.
Cool. Do you remember my... oh, never mind.
Okay.
So looking ahead, what are the future goals you have for your company and yourself?
So definitely growing. I would like to see King Fio get to 50 trucks in the next, 5 years. And I would like to see us get some of the bigger volume accounts and really take us to the next level. I would definitely like to see a big fleet of zero emissions vehicles and making that work. And personally, I tell everybody in the office I'm retiring at 50. And that's about 7 years away. And at that point, I'm just going to travel and be a soccer mom. I say call me for the big problems, but definitely taking a step back. I've built a really good team. We have a lot of family working for us. We've brought family in, and normally that doesn't work out, but it's been fabulous. So shout out to Nestor and Carlos, and really relying on them. I have a stepdaughter who's 25. She just finished 7 years in the Navy, and I'm hoping she might want to come on board eventually. And my stepson's 16, and 7 years from now he'll be in his 20s. Maybe he might want to come aboard. So maybe just stepping back more and letting the family take over. But King Fio is my grandpa's name, so I definitely want to keep it going strong and growing, and being a place for positivity, being a place for a really great livable wage. Doing things for our employees that separates us.
What does a plan look like for someone that wants to grow a fleet? Do you have like a vision board? Are you keeping numbers?
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I do. So I have an actual firm called Simple Back Office, and they're my chief financial officer. And I work with somebody named Todd Lay, and him and I meet every month, and we talk about the future of my business. And I physically write it down, and we talk about numbers, we talk about things, we talk about where I want the business to go. He does not have a background in trucking, and I love that about him. because
numbers, just numbers.
Right. So he just talks to me about what's feasible. When I was starting to open the warehouses, he was like, "You're going to do this," and I'm like, "This is the future. We're doing this. This is what we're going to do." And you know what? King Fio Warehouse is popping right now, busy. So. I do have a firm that I work with, and we put plans in place, and also just aligning myself with great people, going to meetings, learning about what the future is, and having a lot of talks with my husband. And a lot of times something will just hop in our laps, and it'll take us to a new direction or a new level. Also, when a really good driver wants to come and work for me, I'll go buy him a truck, like as an employee, but I'll go buy him a truck because they're great and I want this person to work for me and I have the business to back it up. So it's like, why not? You got somebody great in the truck. You have the business to back it up. Let's go buy a truck. So there's a lot of things, but I definitely do put it in writing, and I do have like a vision, and I do work with somebody on it.
So like I had that where I thought like, you just got to work hard every day. You could do that, right? But there's got to be another element to it, which is that preparing with the right team. And
yes.
Yeah, so.
It took a lot to realize, like, I am not a one-woman show. I cannot do it by myself. Yeah. And the minute I let that go and I opened myself up to other people having opinions, other people having a say in the company, other people working with me, is when we really took off.
CFO, you said.
Yes.
So all these fancy acronyms or whatever, right? Like, what are some other ones that we might not know of, us that are used to just like the daily grind of just trucking, load in, load out. So if you're gonna go all out, you invest in a CFO. What else?
I got to a place where I needed to invest in a CFO, but I think if you're an owner operator and you're looking to go to the next level, you can't be dispatching and driving. You need to get a good...
You have to choose, right?
You need to get... Right, because there are a lot of truckers that dispatch as they drive. You need to get a good team behind you, a good operational team. I think that's where it starts, is like operation-wise. I've noticed with a lot of truckers, and I just did business with another trucker, and I still haven't gotten their bill. They did the loads in August. You need to have a really good billing team, a really good operation team that's checking availability for you if you don't have it automated. That's emailing clients for you. So I think you need to build your operation team, your back office, have a really strong back office. And then also something that what Herb and I did is we still lived in a 1-bedroom apartment. When we started, the checks started coming in and we started making money and we started becoming profitable, because we weren't profitable. The first 4 years we made no money, right? But year 5 came around, we started to see profit. We did not go out and buy a big house. We did not go out and buy a boat. We did not go out. We took all of our money and we reinvested it back in the company. And we gave our drivers bonuses. We took our drivers out to dinner. We did things to show that we cared, because the more that you take care of the people around you, the stronger your business is going to be. But I definitely think if there's an owner operator that's looking to expand, get yourself like 1 or 2 people back office. If you can get a family member that you really trust, great. And, that's where you're going to start.
Yeah, because we're afraid to lose that momentum. Yeah. Like, we got loads. We got to stay loaded.
Right.
Like I'm going to burn these empties and then I'm going to stay loaded, right? So there's always pick something.
Right.
Otherwise, it's that constant momentum, but no growth. You're still at that same speed, though.
Right.
Right. Yeah, it's
definitely take that money you make and put it back in your business. Go buy another truck, go get yourself an office.
Okay. Is there anything that you would like to add? Any advice or?
No, I think just in business, be a good human. Treat everybody like how you want to be treated. Think about being in their shoes, and that will attract great people to you.
Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
And
thank you for having me.
Let's see how it goes next year.
Yeah,
I want to hear all about it.
I'll be back to share tips and tricks. Definitely.
All right. So until next time, your boy was a little rusty, but here we are. We get in the groove.
You were great.
Thank you.
No problem.
So see you guys on the next one. Peace.
Bye.